financial mistakes in the Bible. But within that series, there was lessons to be learned. Lessons to be learned as far as how we're going to handle money, where we're going to place money, what we're going to do to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. We're starting this series, building a strong or a sound financial foundation. Well, the one thing that I will venture out to say is that when we're building the foundation, there are some key factors that need to come into play. One key factor is we as individuals don't know everything. It's just that simple. We don't know everything. If we did know everything, we would not need counsel. We would not need help. We would not need to learn anymore. That's why one of the key factors that we find when it comes to building is that you're pulling people together who have expertise to help establish something. If we look at that example of a construction site, you have someone preparing the cement, someone preparing the rebar, someone prepared to do the electrical work, someone prepared to do the carpentry work, someone prepared to work with the cranes, someone prepared to move the heavy equipment. They're all different types of jobs working for the same goal. So when we are speaking of our financial foundation, it's essential to recognize the fact that there are many different things in life that are dependent on our financial foundation. Earlier today, we always do our 5 o'clock show. On that show, I spoke about the question that was asked earlier this week by someone. They asked that, do I have enough life insurance? Well, the question, do I have enough life insurance, is not a modern day question, but it's a question that has been asked over countless times throughout the years. What we understand is that the person is looking not to replace them with money, but to replace the money that they provide in the time of their passing, in the time of their departure. So what should the money do? The money should, the insurance, I should say, should be able to lay or be a part of that foundation, not the sole foundation, but a strong part of the foundation, what we typically call the chief cornerstone. And anything that is going to that foundation must line up with the chief cornerstone. Well, foundations have to be made. Foundations have to be squared off. Foundations have to be built. When we're looking at that, the Bible clearly tells us that sometimes there are two things that keep us from seeking what the scriptures say, seeking counsel. When you are building your financial foundation, you need to make sure you have good counsel. That counseling session or that counseling team that you should be looking to build should include an attorney, all right, should include a tax advisor or CPA preferred, should include an insurance agent, it should include an investment advisor. All four should be able to work together. Now, sometimes when folks come to my firm, they typically are able to have access to three parts of those four. While yes, we are insurance agents as well as investment advisors and tax consultants. But when it gets to the point where we need to outsource, we have access to other advisors to help our clients. And that's what a team approach is about. When I come to a home and I sit down with a potential client and we talk about their financial foundation, or we talk about the team they're trying to build, I mentioned to them, look upon me as your general manager. You being the owner of the team, I'm being the general manager. And together, we're going to put the coaches, we're going to put the team, we're going to put the support staff we need to strengthen that team, to make it championship caliber, so that the team as a whole reaches the goal, and not just one or two people. Many times folks don't use counsel because of two reasons. The first reason being pride. That's right. Seeking advice to some folks is a sign of weakness. That's what they believe. They don't want to listen to anyone other than themselves. Even such as myself, I take time, I seek advice. You know, I have a sermon that I preach once every now and then called "Who Preaches to the Preacher When the Preacher Needs Preaching?" Think about it. Who preaches to the preacher when the preacher needs preaching? The answer to that question should be the congregation. The reason why I say that is because as a person delivers the word of God, they should be delivering it in a way where it's simple in its nature, but proficient in the response of the people. And when those people learn what is being taught, when the preacher needs help, they're capable of stepping up and helping and lending a helping hand. Finances, same way. When we talk about building a counsel and seeking advice, it is not a sign of weakness. By more essence than ever, it is a sign of strength and ability. Because when you focus on building with one another, you're capable of doing more. The analogy that I give is based upon physics and production. If you have on one hand three things and on the other hand three things, so separately you have six altogether. But synergy is when two things come together and produce a greater amount working together than they would working separately. So instead of having 3 and 3 is 6, synergy means the 3 and 3 is not added but multiplied and becomes 9. Synergy allows a greater production. Synergy allows a greater growth. That's why when Scripture tells us seek counsel, not just any counsel, but wise counsel. Seeking wise counsel when it's time to work with our finances, when it's time to make that decision on the things that we must do, it's essential. It's essential. We have to get beyond the negative and the limited mindset of, I'm going to do it all myself. I got to pull myself up by my own bootstraps. Come on now. Let's be real. Let's be real. How many folks still got bootstraps? Many of y'all walking around with slip-ons and Velcro laces. All right, so the point is that let's not limit ourselves, because the way we're going to grow is to pull in the resources that is out there. When you do that, if you take a seed and just hold it in your hand, that seed is not going to grow. It has to come in contact with nutrients from another source, which is the soil. So the seed comes in contact with an outside source called the soil, where it's embedded. But that's not enough. The soil needs help too. The soil, to release its nutrients, has to be in a moist state. And what does the Scripture say about that? Paul says what? I planted, Apollos watered. Okay? Now, Paul planted that seed in the soil where the nutrients is. When Apollos waters the soil, which releases the nutrients, which is absorbed by the seed, now guess what happens? God can give the increase. So when scriptures say in Psalm 1 verses 1, 2, and 3, it was that blessed is the man that walk not in the what? Counsel of the ungodly. while the scriptures say we need to find counsel, it is clear that there's a specific type of counsel that we need to be seeking. It says, not walking in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standing in the way of sinners, nor sitting in the seat of the scornful. Now, if you think about that, it is a process. A process. And being drifted in the wrong direction is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens quickly. Listen to what it says. First, you're walking with the wrong counsel. Then you're standing. And what do you typically do when you're standing? You talk. All right? And then when you get real comfortable, you sit down with the wrong counsel. And eventually, you find yourself in a situation in which you don't want to be in. When it comes to finance, having the wrong counsel could have you thinking you're moving in the right direction. The wrong counsel will try and stop you and talk to you for a bit of time. So now you're standing there. First you're walking with the wrong counsel, then you're standing there listening to what they're saying, and then eventually you sit down at their desk, and next thing you know, you're signing contracts that you shouldn't be signing. That's why one of the major issues in today's time is the scams and the problems that folks are going after our elderly population, and they do that for two reasons. First reason being our elderly population, our mature population, is the population that has the most discretionary income. Yes, I know many folks may be on a fixed income, but when we talk about discretionary income, they typically don't have a mortgage. The children are grown, and so they have more income typically to be able to travel, to be able to buy things, to have their money do other things other than being limited to mortgage, car payments, and things of that nature. So basically, our senior population has more discretionary income. And typically, our senior population don't have immediate access to counsel. When that occurs, they become targets for predatory lenders. They become targets for aggressive sales tactics. So what we have to do is that we have to begin to educate not only ourselves, but also educate our seniors, our parents, and continue educating our children. So just like the foot of the cross and the crossbar of the cross, and the scriptures say the death of Christ touched the Old Testament and the New. It went back and it went forth. Well, we being the pillar in our community, we must reach back to help our children who's going to take the baton from us, help them, teach them, and educate them on true facts about finances. And then we also have to continue to reach forward to the generation that preceded us to ensure that while they're in their golden years, they're not being taken advantage of by scams, Ponzi's, pyramids, and predatory lenders. This financial foundation has to be solid enough to cover more than one generation. A financial foundation has to be strong enough and capable of building the type of wealth that expands for more than one generation. Someone did a research report on President Trump, and they talked a little bit about where did his father get his money from. Well, President Trump, of course, many of us heard that he got I think it was an $8 million loan from his father to start his business. But where did his father get his money from? At some point back in the early 1900s, his father started off and he began to buy real estate one piece at a time and build up and build up. And then he kept going to where he was able to retain the money and pass it along to his children, or basically his son. And then now his son is trying to set up his children. So we may not agree with the political aspects, but you have to see how things are done. When we build a foundation, the foundation is not, well, God bless the child that has his own. I only typically hear that song being sung in our own communities. Well, God will bless the child, but blessed is the man that has his quiver full. And blessed is the man that the scriptures say, what? Prepares for his house, his children's house, and his children's children. Building 3 generations, where we are, what's coming next, and the generation after that. When we can build that type of foundation where our children will not have to basically scrounge to make a living. Now, there's nothing wrong with working hard, but there is a greater results when working smarter. We can continue to work hard like we do, but continue to teach our children how to work smarter. The way we do that is by example. Building a strong financial foundation is the key. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be speaking on parts of that financial foundation. One part we said is going to be about insurance. How we're going to make sure we are adequately covered. Whether we supply all the insurance coverage from our job, whether we have the insurance coverage personally, or we have a combination of both. The key is, it's not about the product. And I know some folks say, well, is it term, is it whole life, is it universal, is it variable, all of those things. Well, look here. In all my years, and having to work with clients, and having to answer the call when it comes to paying out the proceeds on insurance policies, not one time has anyone ever asked me, well, did they have whole life, or did they have term, or did they have variable, or did they have universally, or even did they have an equity index policy? All of those things are just products. The one thing they always ask, did they have insurance? That's the one thing. All the other stuff is bells, whistles, nuances, all those, marketing things. Now, they all have their place, and they all have a time where they can be used. But the true nature of it all is the policy active at the time of need? Is the insurance active? So we're going to talk a little bit more about the insurance aspect, and then we're also going to talk about the second part of the foundation. We're going to speak on the investment part. Now, the investments, let's get this straight now. Insurance policies are not investments. I think it sounds so nice, I got to say it twice. Insurance policies are not investments. Insurance policies are what we call a risk management tool. What is the risk? The risk is losing the income that person is providing. So therefore, you want to manage that risk by providing it or leveraging the risk through insurance. That's what insurance is. Now, can insurance proceeds and benefits be able to augment investment portfolios? Yes, they can. But for our learning, insurance is not an investment. It's insurance. It's a risk management tool. Now, when we speak on investments, we're speaking of those things that are designed to accumulate money. Now, a bank account can be an investment if it's designed to make interest. Why? You put the money aside. They call it a deposit, But in essence, you're investing it to where you put your money aside and it also gains interest. Now, there are different levels of investments, such as bank accounts, such as CDs, money markets, stocks, bonds, commercial accounts, foreign exchange. There are many different types of investments. So when we get to the week when we're discussing investments, we're going to delve into the different types that are out there. Now, at any given time, I don't say one is better than the other, but I will say this, is that it's important that we understand the need to have proper investments, the same as the need to have proper insurance. They're going to serve its purpose. We talked about one of the worst financial mistakes in the Bible was when the man took his one talent and did not make it grow. When the master returned, we're talking about in the book of Matthew, when the master returned, he said to the one that had the 5 talents, he said to the one that had the 5 talents, well done, my good and faithful servant, because they took the 5 and got 5 more. The one that had 2 talents, he said, well done, my good and faithful servant, because he took the 2 and made 2 more. The person that had the 1 talent, and this is the key, it's not about the money, but it's about the obedience. The money and the example here, the talent was used as an example. And what he said to him was, he said, you could have at least taken my money and put it in the bank so I could have made some interest. So in other words, if you are not capable of making large investments, you're capable of doing something where you are. Taking your money, hiding it under the mattress, putting it in a coffee can, burying it in the ground is not good stewards of what you've been blessed with. So when we take the opportunity to have that wise counsel, when we take the opportunity to set up investment accounts, we must understand the need and also the use of that investment account. If you are planning to retire in a short period of time and you're doing aggressive investments, no, that's not wise. It has to be suitable. It has to meet the right objectives. So that's the criteria of the discussion we're going to have when we speak on the investment side of the financial foundation. The third side we're going to speak on, or the third corner, I should say, is tax or taxation. We're going to speak on taxation because all too often people will accumulate assets and forget about the taxes. My goodness, I just recently threw it out. Maybe I'll try and duplicate a copy. Every so often, and primarily about once a year around May, June, I get articles from the financial publications that speak on who died and who did not have an estate plan. Taxes must be paid. You can't avoid it. There are basically 2 things that we know is going to happen in this world today. And that is death, and the other is taxes. They're going to be paid. Now, how much you pay can be dependent upon how well you plan. We don't plan to fail, but we what? We fail to plan. So we want to change that and understand how taxes play a part in your financial foundation. You can have investments, all right? But if you're behind in your taxes, guess what they may do? They may levy your portfolio and have access to that money. So you don't want that, because what happens is it takes away from its growth potential. Making sure your taxes are cared for and that your taxes are properly done is essential to your foundation. You don't want to go 5, 10, or nowadays even 3 years down the road, and then now being subject to audit and have to answer questions as to why this wasn't done a certain way. Most of us, we can't keep crying for the past year I'll release my taxes when the audit's done. Most of us won't get away with that. We'll find ourselves with some government handcuffs and 3 hots and a cot. So let's stay away from those things and focus on making sure. And as a matter of fact, this time of the year is a good time to make an assessment of your taxes. You just finished paying your income taxes, or just finished doing your taxes. If you filed an extension, well, you have till October. So, but during this period of time is a good opportunity to assess where you are. What have you accomplished, and what will you try to accomplish for the end of the year? I tell you, the end of the year comes fast. We are now where? In the third quarter of the year. Is it third quarter? No, we're still in the second quarter. We're quickly approaching the third quarter. And so when we get there, it's going to be, things are moving fast. And then one more quarter, so we're in the last 6 months of this year. And time is filled with what? Swift transition. It waits for no man. So it's important to make sure we understand our insurance portfolios, which is for risk management, our investment portfolios, which is for asset management, our tax portfolio, which is for tax management, and then the last one. I typically call it cash flow or business consulting. I'm going to venture to say right now, they are both, we're going to blend those two terms into one. Because the first business, every one of us is running a business. The first business that you will ever be in is the business of you. The business of you. If you begin to manage your household, to manage your daily activities, to manage your educational goals, to manage your life as a business, you will take time not to make hasty decisions or emotional decisions by taking the time to evaluate what it is that you're trying to do. Now, I started off by saying we need to seek what? We need to seek counsel. And I said there were two things that cause us not to seek counsel. One is pride, because too often folks believe that seeking help is a sign of weakness. Then the second thing, the second attitude that keeps us from seeking counsel is stubbornness. That's right, stubbornness. We get to the point sometimes where we say, well, you know what? I've done it this far by myself. I don't need anybody's help. Stubbornness. Sometimes folks can show you the right way to go, but we don't move. When we think about leading a horse to water, but what's the end part of that? You can lead him to water, but you can't make him drink. Why? Because horses can be stubborn animals. Folks can be stubborn animals too. I was asked earlier today, do I see it difficult speaking to the millennials, the younger folks, about building their foundation, buying insurance, investing for their future? And I really said, no, I don't. I said, our young folks are smart. They watched how money was managed, money was handled by the generation before them. And when they did that, they saw the results. They witnessed us go through the Great Recession. They witnessed how we handled it. They watched their parents' homes get foreclosed on. They watched their parents go without health insurance. They've watched these things. And now they've come of age where they're voting. They are making decisions like, well, hey, wait a minute. I don't want to be like that. After the Great Depression, the generation that came after them, the generation that watched their parents go through the Great Depression, you know what title is given to them? The greatest generation. The greatest generation, that generation that was born right after or during that time of the Great Depression, because they watched, they learned, and they were determined not to let it happen again. That generation is now at a point, that greatest generation, they're at the tail end of their, of their life. So they're trying to embark or shed information to us, to my generation. And our generation, I'll tell you the truth. A lot of stuff happened that should not have happened because we didn't watch like we should have. But our children now, they're watching us. They're seeing what's going on in the areas of politics, in the areas of finance, in the areas of global economies, in the areas of education. They're watching. And they are astute and want to make a difference in a positive way. When I think of my sons, they're more politically involved at their young adult stage in life than I was even in my 30s. And I'm like, hey, where did they get that from? But they've been watching. And they know time is of essence. That's what we taught them. So to answer that question, I said our young folks are smart. But what typically happens is while the young folks are smart, they're not as stubborn. They're willing to accept and take the risk to plan for their future. It is the folks who are sometimes in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s who are too stubborn to realize that they still can make a change. Yes, so stubbornness and pride often prevents us from seeking counsel that we need. And scriptures say for us to beware of the man who's double-minded. All right? Scriptures tells us to seek wise counsel. I started off by saying Psalm 1 verses 1, 2, and 3. All right? So we said what? Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. But what else does it say? It says, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And in his law does he what? Meditate day and night. Now, that law of the Lord is, he's seeking wisdom as to how to go about things. He's meditating. He's thinking. He's not making emotional or irrational judgments. When you meditate on something, you're getting deep into thought, and you're looking at and you're measuring the consequences to your actions. Life is about making choices. When we surround ourselves with wise counsel, and I'm going to even add a little bit more to not just wise counsel, but wise spiritual counsels. Wise spiritual counsel. It helps us make better decisions with what we're doing. So we need to seek counsel, and we also need to find the right sources of our counsel. One of the first areas you will find the right source of counsel is the person you marry. Yes. Scriptures say what? Where the two become one. You're joined in holy matrimony. That's very important. That is very important. When folks are preparing for marriage, did you know that the IRS will allow a tax deduction for financial counseling for folks who are going to get married? Did you know that? If you didn't know, like the song someone said, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. That's right. There is a credit or a tax deduction that the IRS will give for taking financial counseling before you get married. It's essential. It's there. It is there. So when we do those things and you sit down with your spouse and you discuss the finances, there are going to be those who are spenders, and then there are going to be those who are savers. You must discuss these things before you get married, and continue to discuss them while you're married. Because what does it do? It makes sure you both are on the same track. You know, I remember, in grade school we were studying the dinosaurs, and they said they had this two-headed dinosaur. You would think with two heads are better than one, but they said the two-headed dinosaur was the dumbest thing that walked the earth. I guess maybe because they didn't agree. Scriptures tell us, how can two men walk except they agree? When you and your spouse are preparing for your future, you have to agree. Let's go back to the aspect of the construction site. What would it be like? What would it be like if the architect, drew the plans, and then the person that laid the cement, if those two did not agree on the specifics of the foundation? What would that building be like? What would it be like if the person that is welding the steel girders together does not agree with the person who's operating the crane to bring the steel girder? It's not going to work. So if you're going to build that financial foundation, if you're going to lay that foundation and build that house on top of it, the first person that you need to sit down and agree with as part as your source of counsel is the person you took in matrimony. Now, for those who may not be married, okay, well, another counsel that you can use would be your parents. Yes, I know I'm grown, but you know what? There are some things that my father and my father-in-law have experienced in their aged life that I have yet to experience. It behooves me to be able to go to them still in today's time and say, hey, Dad, hey, Poppy, what do you think about this? They're not going to come out financially, but what they're going to do is they're going to help me prepare, because they know if they can help me prepare, that information I'm going to take and share with their grandsons. So now, what are they doing? They are doing as scriptures say. And it's not always about money. It's about what? The mindset, the process, the wealth understanding. They are taking their wealth of knowledge, sharing it with me, and I share it with the next generation. So what have they done? They prepared their house and their children's house and their children's children. I take the information. I develop a wealth of information. I share it with my children. And then as they grow, prepare them to be able to share it one day with theirs. So if you're not married, you still can find wise financial counsel in your parents. Now, you may make more money than your family or your parents do right now. You may make more money than they ever have done. But let me tell you something. Have you ever noticed how they were capable of doing more with less than you are having more right now? Is because there were some financial understanding that they had that you may not have right now. You may have more money in the bank, but trust me, they know how to keep a roof over the head, food on the table, and clothes on their back. So as a single person, you may not have that level of understanding right now. You may have the income, but there's still some understanding that needs to be done. So when we think about building the financial foundation, we are thinking of building it to the point where we can share things not only with our family, but with other families. So the series that we're going to be speaking on for the month of June is going to be focused on building a sound financial foundation. We're going to cover insurance for risk management. We're going to cover investments for asset management. We're going to cover taxation for tax management. And we're going to cover business for your cash flow management. Those areas will help build a strong, solid foundation. If we can get those 4 cornerstones all lined up and lay the groundwork and the cement the proper way, I am confident. I'm confident that you will be able to build a sound financial foundation and assets that can cover from one generation to the next to the next. Source Nation, this has been Power Over Tomorrow, Facebook Live. This has been Power Over Tomorrow. And we definitely thank you for your input that you've been sending. Thank you for those who are logged in right now. And I do appreciate this. But remember, we still have 2 more shows after this show, after Power Over Tomorrow. We have the Political Corner and the Pendulum. And those, let me tell you, those brothers are sound in what they're delivering regarding what's happening in the political process and what's happening in the social process. So we want to make sure that you stay well informed throughout the week. Stay tuned and make sure you hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter. Visit our website at tsmitchell.com. Again, that's tsmitchell.com. Hey, shoot me an email at Tyrone@tsmitchell.com. Download the free financial app and also sign up for our free financial newsletters. Ladies and gentlemen, my time with you has come to its allotted end, but I will say this. In your walk of life, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind forever be at your back. May the sun shine upon you with his warmth, and may the rain fall upon you ever so gently. Until the next time when we can cross each other's path, may the God of heaven hold you in the hollow of his hands. I am Tyrone T.S. Mitchell. This has been Power Over Tomorrow. Source Nation, Facebook Live, family and friends. Be well, be blessed, and be your best.
Muted. We'll be back, Source Radio Network, after this commercial break.
Hopefully play by commercial and we'll go from there. Yes. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's truly a pleasure being able to bring Power Over Tomorrow. Well, they're going right into the next program, but I want to say continue to hit us up with your questions, your comments, and your concerns, because what we're doing is trying to build a strong economic base. No longer should we have to indulge in political and also economic disparities. So, ladies and gentlemen, continue. Thank you for your support. Be well.
First, if at all possible, please do not take a cash distribution. The taxes and penalties could make that money the most expensive money you will ever use. At T.S. Mitchell Financial, we have over 20 years experience helping people with retirement and 401k plans. So you truly help people. Yes, our goal is to provide sound financial information for your family, your future, and your finances. Appointments are